Yo guys, today we're covering the question, will Ascension, the new aspect for Arcstrider hunters coming in the final shape, provide a good alternative build path for them? We're finally taking a break from Void Titans. I know y'all been probably wondering when we're going to get off that topic. And this is the second of 3 videos where I cover the upcoming aspects coming in the final shape and whether or not they'll fill a hole a subclass has. Let's jump into it. Now, Arc Hunters are actually in a pretty good spot currently. Their latest super, Gathering Storm, is amazing, really good for DPS. The subclass is consistently used for solo flawless dungeon runs, and they have a decent mix of damage output and survivability tools. The ability loop is also easy to establish and makes sense. Lethal Current plus Flow State. You dodge to make your next melee jolt. Defeating jolted targets make you amplified. While amplified, you gain a slew of benefits, one of which is plus 50 mobility, your class stat, and another is access to Speed Booster, which grants 15% damage resist while sprinting. While amplified, you also gain increased dodge cooldown regen and have 66% damage resist while dodging. And dodging with Gambler's Dodge gives you a full melee charge when you're close to enemies, and punching jolted targets blinds them. It's simple, effective, and effortlessly loops back into itself. Also, both melees are great options. Combination Blow increases the damage the more you use it consecutively in a short period, while also refilling your class ability and healing you for a small amount, while Disorienting Blow blinds and amplifies you. With a great super and an easy yet effective gameplay loop, you might be asking yourself, what does this subclass lack? Well, you may have noticed that I only mentioned 2 aspects. This is because it's pretty much agreed upon that Tempest Strike is awful, and maybe in a future video we'll look at the numbers to back that up. Also, while not a bad thing, the class has many redundant benefits/abilities which allow you to build the class in any way and not go wrong, but causes a lot of builds to feel similar to each other and like there's a lack of variety. Additionally, everything revolves around the melee. And I know that's funny coming from a Titan main, but it is something to note. With all that in mind, we can start to form an opinion of what the subclass lacks and what the new aspect should aim to do. Build variety, as in an alternative path to the punch, dodge, gameplay loop. Maybe an option for Ionic Traces or just Grenade Regen, as that isn't anywhere in the kit, or something to synergize with Tempest Strike and maybe make it better. As we'll see in the clips that Bungie has provided of the new aspect, Ascension gets extremely close to accomplishing one of these, but falls short of anything else. Let's take a look. Alright, they're showing us Amplified being applied to teammates. Ascension being paired with Tempest Strike. Looks like a maybe 1-2 kill combo in PvP. A second dodge charge. I think we saw it go out in an AoE and a line in front of you. Okay. Let's unpack how it could be used before we get into whether or not it'll hit the mark. Bungie obviously wants it to be paired with Tempest Strike, as we can only assume that their data highlights a lack of use coming from that aspect. We at least have to acknowledge their attempt at putting something in the game that incentivizes the use of one of the worst aspects. And like we saw, it may have the potential to 1-2 wombo combo kill someone in PvP, which could be nice. I'll be honest though, no idea if that is a selling point for Hunter mains who play PvP. Ascension also provides Hunter with some more support tools in a space where they usually only focus on damage. I'd say that is definitely in the right direction, and can't ignore that it also jolts, which is a great subclass damage perk. Lastly, and arguably the most important, Ascension looks like it can also be paired with Flow State for weapon focused builds. Apply amplification to yourself and jolt enemies under and in front of you. Now while you're amplified, you have increased weapon handling and reload speed, slide distance, strafe speed, and jump height from the 50 mobility. Then all the jolted enemies you kill extend your amplification. In addition, you have increased dodge cooldown for being amplified, which helps feed back into Ascension since it consumes your dodge. Now, while this is all looking up to be possibly a really good aspect for Arcstrider hunters, the benefits stop there. Ascension unfortunately continues with the pattern of Arc Hunter aspects and abilities that all somewhat do the same thing. Already, the build that I made can do all of that on its own with just Flow State. Flow State only needs to kill jolted targets to get it going, which can be done with 1 grenade and 1 fragment. And while applying amplification to you and your allies is great, I have to ask, what does being amplified really bring to the table? Don't get me wrong, I know it comes as basically a bundle of perks all rolled into one nice and easy package, but it doesn't do much other than increase the fun factor. And I know I don't want to ignore that, but it increases jump height, sprint speed, and you get damage resist while sprinting, etc. All are nice, but even the Arc subclasses don't get much of a benefit for being amplified, and it doesn't hold a candle to some of the other subclass perks in the game. And again, don't get me wrong, I'm not asking it to be in line with something as strong as, say, Woven Mail. I'm just trying to point out that being amplified doesn't do much for hunters nor anyone else. And this is to set up the alternative option that is staring us all in the face: Ionic Traces. Hunters have no intrinsic way to create Ionic Traces for themselves, save one fragment that comes with a 10-second cooldown, while they have a plethora of ways to jolt and become amplified. Let's count them just to really highlight how absurd it is. To gain amplified, there's Flow State, Disorienting Blow, Spark of Volts, any Arc multi-kill, and Ascension if it ships as is. And for Jolt, there's Flow State, Lethal Current, Tempest Strike, Spark of Instinct, Spark of Shock, and Ascension if it ships as is. That is an incredible amount of ways to do the same thing. This is to show that hunters aren't asking for another way to jolt enemies, nor another way to become amplified. And like I mentioned, amplified doesn't do much for anyone else either. But Ionic Traces are useful to everyone. They intrinsically track to you, which means you don't have to worry about picking them up, which can be vital and hard content, and provide ability regen for grenade, melee, and class ability. Hunters could use this, and so could everyone else on your fire team. In every single piece of content from PvP to master raid encounters, Ionic Traces are useful. This could be implemented any number of ways, but without any game dev knowledge, here are some that I thought up. Give everyone a buff that makes their kills within a time frame create Ionic Traces. It's kind of like a cousin to the Reaper mod. And this could be an ability or weapon kill, kind of like Banner of War does, which helps allow for more weapon gameplay, which Bungie wants. Or debuff a target that, upon death, supplies an Ionic Trace for everyone on the team, sort of like Boots of the Assembler. These Ionic Traces could be supercharged or be as is, and the change to Ionic Traces would replace the amplification, but leave the damage part of the aspect. And the reason being, you already get amplified pretty easily for multi-killing with arc damage. So if you're doing anything else on arc subclass, you're going to get amplified, at least for the hunter. This change would also still allow Ascension to work with Tempest Strike, since the target you just jolted with said aspect would now provide Ionic Traces to you and your team. So Tempest Strike would help bring some lethality to Ascension if they were to be paired. So while I greatly appreciate Bungie adding more support options into the game, especially for hunters, I continuously find myself sitting here wondering why this is how they're going to implement it. It will be fun, and it will provide a different build route for hunters, but it does not fill the gap Arcstriders have in their kit: a lack of Ionic Trace creation and an aspect everyone avoids. Yes, Ascension can be paired with Tempest Strike, but why would you need or want to reapply Jolt to a target immediately after you've just jolted them? And the way Arc is designed, becoming amplified isn't difficult since it only requires Arc multi-kills. So both the amplification and the jolt provide little to no additional benefit to Arcstriders, nor your fire team, and as a result, Ascension will more than likely miss the mark upon arrival. It feels like Bungie is so close to greatness with this one. It already provides an alternate gameplay loop for Arcstriders and puts more support options in the game. It just provides perks that are overdone on Arc Hunters. P.S. Bungie, why does this propel you into the air? Hunters have 3 subclasses that have dive abilities, but you put this mechanic on Arc, and it already has a move that puts you up in the air. Do you see your playtesters using this? Let's run that tape back. They're missing shots and look awkward hanging in the air like that. What do you expect them to do up there? With airborne effectiveness in the game, abilities that put you up into the air should come with intrinsic buffs to your airborne effectiveness like Heat Rises, or be paired with abilities that slam you back down like Consecration. Additionally, Your goal for this aspect is to be paired with Tempest Strike, which already puts you up in the air. Why does this not slam you down? To give some more fluid gameplay to the aspect you want to incentivize people to use. Anyways, at the end of the day, I know these aspects aren't in the game yet, and I know you've heard this in the last video, but it is much easier, again, for Bungie to make changes to abilities during development than when an ability is in the live game. So, I'm providing feedback based on what Bungie has shown us, in the hopes that my and our voices are heard, and they make some changes accordingly. Thanks for making it this far to the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and that it brought up some good points that maybe you didn't even know. Let's talk about Hunters in the final shape down in the comments. Afro out.